What's going on, everybody? My name is Caleb, and welcome back to the Cinephile Diaries. This is episode 17, or the third episode if you're watching on the YouTube channel. Yeah, let's jump into it. This is gonna be a great episode. I think this is gonna be a little bit of a weird episode. I'm very excited for this episode, but be prepared. It's gonna be kind of a weird one. I watched one movie this week, but I still think this episode's going to somehow manage to be over an hour. I want to talk about the writer's strike. I watched a comedy special that I really want to talk about, and then Star Wars Visions. I think in the first episode on Spotify, or on like the actual podcast feed, I think in the first episode I mentioned I was going to talk about short films. So I'm going to talk about all 9 of the Visions episodes in this episode. I'm going to talk about all of them. I'll do a kind of overview, a spoiler-free overview at the beginning, and then I'll dive into talking about each of the individual 9 episodes. Yeah, I'm really excited. I hope that wasn't too loud. That might have been really loud, actually. But I'm really excited to jump into it. This was a really, really good week, and I think that there's just a lot to talk about, and I'm very excited to do it, so let's jump in. Okay, so obviously we're going to start the week the same way we start every week. We're going to talk about Ted Lasso. This is going to be interesting because I think the Venn diagram of people who listen to my show and people who watch Ted Lasso are 2 completely separate circles. I don't know if there's anybody listening to this right now that actually watches Ted Lasso. All you're hearing is my opinion on it, and up until this point, my opinion on Ted Lasso has been nothing but praise. It's my favorite show of all time. I did not like this episode. I I mentioned in my I did a short initial reaction to it on YouTube. Um, I think there's a lot to think about. I think there's thematically this episode's really interesting. I think it's basic storytelling. You have to take characters to their darkest point in order for them to rise. Um, but I did not like this episode. So the plot of the episode is, well, it's Ted Lasso. There's several different plots, but the the I guess the A plot is Keeley gets there's a leak of Apple from, not just Apple, but a bunch of celebrities get their get some explicit photos leaked. And Keeley is one of them. And I felt the way this was handled was completely out of character for this show. Um, this show has been such a picture of what I think healthy masculinity is supposed to be. Um, Such a picture of, I don't know, running from shame and letting people be who they are. And it felt like the way this was handled was just too, I don't know how to explain it. It was not the show that I have been used to watching. Because the team starts off, like the team, before they realize Keeley is one of the people who's had a photo leaked. They start talking about, like, because they're all celebrities, they start reckoning with what would happen if their phone got hacked and they had photos leaked. And they come to the conclusion to just delete all the photos, which is fine. I just think there's an opportunity to have a more nuanced conversation about, like having a conversation about the responsibility of fame is fine. That's great. Um, but there's a more nuanced conversation to be had about the way uh, women are sexualized, the way sexuality is handled in the public sphere. Um, that I don't think you handle that conversation by shaming anyone for being um, sexual, for being like it's the very soul of what it is to be human. Um, and I don't think this show handled it like the very modern, like I literally talked about last week. They used the word love bombing. That's like very of the moment. That's something I hadn't even heard of the idea of love bombing till like 6 weeks ago. And this felt like the way this handled sexuality and the controversy felt like it was from the 80s. Like it felt very old fashioned to me. Uh, I don't know. I don't know that I really get a say in this, but if you're listening to this, you're listening to this for my opinion. So, um, I did not like. So there's that. They have that conversation and they end up like deciding to delete all the photos or whatever, which I don't think was the mature conversation to have about sexuality. I think it was very, I don't know, pro shame. But then you also get um, Isaac, who is one of my favorite characters on the show. He's been funny, sweet, surprising. The show has been so much about dudes who know how to express themselves, who know how to handle vulnerability, how to be kind, how to not be judgmental. So then Isaac, back up. I don't remember if I've talked about Colin. One of the players is gay, but he's not out. Um, so then Isaac, that player is Colin. Isaac is trying to convince Colin to delete the pictures that Isaac thinks Colin has. And so he takes his phone to delete them himself. Which once again, like the Isaac being this like iron fisted leader forcing them to do this thing. I don't. It just didn't. This episode just did not feel right to me. Um, but he takes Colin's phone and realizes and like sees the pictures that Colin actually has and realizes the thing that Colin has been hiding. And he seems upset, he seems angry and walks away. Like that whole thing just seems so out of character for this show. Um Also the way Roy handles it. When Roy figures out who it is, when Roy figures out that Keeley had a photo leak, he asks her who it was for. He asks her who it was for. He doesn't try to comfort her. He doesn't try to um he doesn't try to console her. He doesn't tell her that it sucks. I mean, I think he says sorry, but he asks her who it was for, which is so not in character for Roy. Roy has always been the selfless one. Like like that has been his entire arc, this entire show. And in this episode, he I don't know. I don't like I'm not I don't remember Roy being jealous ever being a part of Roy's character. Um and then there's the plot line with Ted. Ted Henry comes to stay with Ted for a week, and so that Ted's ex-wife and the therapist, their doctor, who Ted's ex-wife is now dating. Um, I'm not bitter about it. I'm still very angry about it actually. Um, so he can take her to Paris. So Ted becomes convinced that Dr. Jacob is going to propose to his wife. That so he like asks Rebecca to hire a private investigator. That even that felt completely out of character for Ted. Like yes, Ted would be upset about it and he would be obsessing over it, but I don't think he would be hiring a private investigator to do it. Like I don't think Ted I think Ted would take all that pain on himself, not like I so much of this episode just did not work for me. Um, just this, like, this was not it. The good stuff, Nate. The good stuff was actually with Nate this episode. I am not sure how I feel. I haven't talked about it, but I'm not sure how I feel about Nate dating the waitress who was mean to him. I think I like the fact that they're kind of getting together. Hopefully it ends well, or hopefully it doesn't end well. I hope. No, I don't know. I don't know. You knew Nate was gonna get redeemed, and he tries to start his own version of the Diamond Dogs. He tries to start his own that like how are you gonna have the Diamond Dogs? How are you gonna have this literal support group of men that come together to talk about their feelings? How are you gonna have that level of emotional maturity and then still have a plotline where men can't handle the fact that women have a sexuality? Like how once again, I don't know that I actually get a voice in this conversation, but if you're listening to this, I think you're listening for my opinion, so I don't care. Um, but yeah, so Nate tries to start his own Diamond Dogs, and it doesn't really go well because of course it doesn't, because nothing Nate does ever goes well, except for coaching apparently. Um, but yeah, like that side of the episode was cute, and I love the ending with Beard gives Nate's son a really nice speech while Ted is being an absentee father, which I guess Ted has always been an absentee father. It's just never been at the forefront of the show because he literally ran away to another country. Um, but it just felt wrong. Like it just didn't feel right. But the conversation that Beard has with Henry was really nice, and the fact that they end it by singing "Hey Jude," which kind of fits the situation. Really nice moment in an episode, the first episode in I believe 30. I believe this was the 30th episode of Ted Lasso, which is my favorite show of all time. This was the first episode that I did not enjoy. This was not it. I don't know what happened this episode, but this was not it. Like I don't know. This was a weird way to start the episode, and I have no idea if I might get canceled. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this was not it. This was not my favorite. Anyway, let's jump into some other weird stuff because this is a very weird episode of the podcast. Let's jump into. I want to talk about the writer strike next, so let's jump into that. Okay, so on a hopefully less controversial note, let's talk about the the writer strike. And I am not an expert on the writer strike or the economics of everything that's going on. I just wanted to talk about my specific view of what's been going on. I'm not a member of the WGA. I am a hopeful, like it's weird. I hate writing. I hate sitting down to write, but I also love it. I love thinking about it. I love analyzing stories. I love putting stories together. Yeah. I love thinking. I love writing. But I also hate writing, which I think is a hallmark of most writers, to be honest. So with that in mind, the current situation is really worrying and a little bit disheartening. So there's two main cruxes, at least that I specifically want to touch on with the writer's strike. There is the subject of there's the pay, there's the subject of writing as a profession that seems to be at stake. It appears that the producers, the studios, the companies want to turn writing in, want to create a gig economy. They want writers to come in, write their thing, we'll pay you whatever we pay you, and then leave. That's not long-term employment. That's not that's not a steady job. That's not maintainable, especially given the average salary of a writer, um, uh, which has changed drastically in ye olden days, like 2013, 2014, when most TV shows were running 18 to 24 episodes a season. Most of them were actually leaning 22 to 24, but you were running 20 episodes, and writers were getting paid for each of those episodes, and they were working 10 months out of the year. Um, that was a lot more sustainable. It's like teaching. Like the salaries for writers have never been great, but you get 2 months off, you have a steady job for 10 months out of the year. Now that model has changed pretty drastically. Now, the average length of a season of TV is like 8 to 10 episodes. Um, and all of the episodes are written before you go into production. So in the olden days, the olden days, writers would get to be on set also for the episodes that they wrote. They would get to be on set. They would get on set experience. So if they wanted to move up and direct or become a showrunner, they could. Now, because everything's written beforehand, they're not even really allowing writers to be on set unless you are the showrunner. Um, so it's much more difficult to move up the ladder as a TV writer. And that's not even mentioning film, because film is a completely different model, and film, like, I'm not going to talk much about film writing because it's not the important subject outside of the other major issue in the strike, which we'll get to in a minute. Um, but so now your opportunities for growth are low. You have very little opportunities for growth. You're making consistently less every year. You're making consistently less, and there's a thing called mini rooms, which Netflix has started, which like streamers have started doing, because once again, in the olden days, you would write a pilot. You would write the first episode of your show that like sold the show. What is this show? You would write a pilot, and then you would sell the pilot, and then you would get greenlit for a full season. Now streamers are greenlighting whole seasons and then putting together these small rooms of like 2 to 3, maybe 4 writers to break down like 2 or 3 stories as like a proof of concept, and then they'll write a full season. But those mini rooms, those gig writers, have no guarantee that they'll get to stay on for the actual show. Um, are not like there's just no security in that. It's a very short period of time. You get a month or two to break these 3 or 4 stories, um, and then you might not even get staffed on the actual show. Um, and that's not like Then there's also the concept of residuals, which in the olden days, I have said that a lot. In the olden days, um, you would get paid for writing the episode, and then you would get paid when the episode aired. You would get paid the residuals for when the episode airs. If the episode reran, you would get paid for that, and then if it got sold into syndication, you would get paid for that. With streamers, syndication is gone, reruns is gone, and streamers aren't transparent about their viewership numbers, so it's literally impossible to determine residuals, because streamers won't tell you how many people watched the show. So they're not gonna pay residuals, because that would mean they would have to reveal those numbers. Um, so the money side of being a writer is not good, and it's only going to get worse, because studios are moving harder into streaming, and they're trying to create a gig economy. They're trying to turn writers into freelancers. like it's a part-time. I have been on 5 sets in my entire life, I think. Let's see. One, two, I think five. I was on 3 in like 2018, and then I was on 2, and then I've been on 2 since then. That's what they're trying to turn writing into. Not a steady job, not, I worked not I got to write, not I staffed on this show for however many years and then I wrote an episode and then they gave me a pilot and I got to write my pilot and I became a showrunner. That's not happening. Now it's, I might write an episode here in January and then I might write an episode there in August and then I might be able to make rent basically. um yeah, it's not healthy. The other side, uh, the other side of this strike, which is much more kind of apocalyptic, I think, for the industry, is the concept of AI, the concept of artificial intelligence. I don't want to admit the amount of hours I've wasted in ChatGPT just making it say stuff, just making it say stuff, or like, making it write TV, um, because I'm a lazy writer. No, that like here's what I'll say about ChatGPT. It's a fun toy and it's an interesting tool, but it is not a replacement for writers, and that is what the studio is trying to do. I have tried to make that thing write dialogue. It's awful. The dialogue that thing spits out is miserable. But studios are trying to turn ChatGPT, like they want to basically feed ChatGPT scripts, books, source material, and have it spit out and have it adapt that into a screenplay. Um, and then speaking of the gig economy, this is where movies come in. They then want to hire writers to rewrite that material because rewrites are cheaper than first drafts. Rewrites are cheaper than first drafts. So what you're seeing is the writing as a profession go out the window because we can't make enough money to do it, to do our job, to do the job, and still feed families. Um, and also, we're literally being replaced by robots. They literally want to replace us with robots and then just have us come in and clean it up. Because it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good, but it'll do half the work for them. Um, this strike is a battle for the heart and soul of a profession, an art, and an industry. And it's I understand where the studios are coming from because they're a business. They have to make money, and they're in so much, like, we're coming off of the streaming wars, which the startup cost for a streaming service is billions of dollars. These studios are billions of dollars in debt from starting streaming services or Netflix, or like if they're Netflix, spending way too much money on content. All of them are trying to cut costs, which I completely understand. But it's an art. It's an art, not a business. It ain't. I mean, it's an art, not a business. Like the only reason this thing is monetized, the only reason we put money into art. There's an old quote. I don't remember who it's by. Maybe Walt Disney. That is, we don't make movies to make money. We make money to make more movies. Yes, it's a business. Yes, you need to make money, but you make that money to stoke the creative spirit of humanity. Like, that's what, like, we have, I don't want to sound grandiose or pretentious, we have one of the most, I believe, one of the more important jobs. Like, obviously, we're not saving the rainforest, we're not saving lives. Those are real heroes. But we have we are the hope. We're like Laszlo's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, you need people who feed you, you need people who house you, you need people who save you when you're in physical, real danger. Um, but you also need hope and entertainment and joy to make the rest of it bearable. And that is what artists do. I'm not even gonna mention myself because I'm not a good writer. That is what these artists do. I would not be the person that I am today without writers like Bill Goldman with Princess Bride, writers like Aaron Sorkin, writers like Neil Gaiman. Um, the concept of the destruction of writing as a profession is a very real possibility at this point, and that's terrifying because a screenplay is not the most important thing. I mean, it is very important, but you have to, it's the foundation. You still have to make more art to build on top of that. You have to have a cinematographer who's an artist. You have to have a director who's an artist. You have to have an actor who's an artist. And don't even misinterpret me. Don't even misinterpret me. They're all in danger too. There is a guy on TikTok making a thing called I want to say it's Cinescribe AI that is literally teaching ChatGPT to use DaVinci Resolve and Blender and several voice modulators. So literally, he's just gonna start feeding that thing books, and it's gonna spit out a movie. Like it's gonna spit out an entire movie. I have no idea if that's even possible at this point. And like that's a fun gimmicky idea. That's the thing about AI is it's a fun gimmick, it's a fun thought, but once you actually start putting it into practice, once you actually start trying to replace the people who are doing the real work, you're bankrupt. You're completely bankrupt. Yeah. So like I mentioned that because there's the possibility that in June, at the end of June, the directors and actors could also strike. A Voltron, I heard somebody else compared to Voltron, like a freaking Megazord strike. Um, that like, and I like that's a wild idea. And I have no idea if it'll happen because solidarity is not something that happens in Hollywood. I have no idea if that'll happen, but I think it's the only way to actually solve the problem. To actually solve the problem, because if the writers reach a deal, if the writers just reach a compromise, I like that the problem doesn't go away. The problem doesn't go away. We're because the studios are still going to be trying to save money. They're still going to be trying to, you know, inch the writers who are deemed the least important. They're still going to be trying to inch them out. That's not going to stop unless the entire industry, writers, directors, actors, slap them in the face, basically, and take the profession back, take the art back. I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm blowing it completely out of proportion. But this is incredibly important. This is a big deal. It the level, as someone who dreams of working in this industry, the level of existential dread I'm having at watching the industry implode, and if the industry implodes, the business isn't going to go away because it's so lucrative. You know what is going to go away? The art, the soul. That's what's going to be gone. And you know, people will still go see it, I think. I don't know. I'm a little bit more hopeful that if the movies are just soulless and bad, people won't go see them. I'm a little bit more hopeful about that, but not much. Uh, yeah, it's a scary time to be a dreamer. I'll just say that. It's a scary time to be a dreamer. But yeah, that was weirdly doom and gloom. That was my kind of spiel on the writer strike. That was fun. Yeah, that's the state of the industry at this point. That's the state of what we're going through. Let's jump into some more fun stuff. Let's jump into Star Wars Visions. Actually, no, 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 no. I got to talk about a comedy special. I got to talk about a comedy special. Let's jump into that. Okay, so the first thing that I logged on Letterboxd this week, I believe, I don't want to check, but the first thing that I logged on Letterboxd this week was the new John Mulaney stand-up special, Baby J, a wide-ranging conversation. I feel like it's hard not to have some kind of interaction with John Mulaney just because he's a very popular comedian, and you spend any time on the internet, you're gonna see a clip of John Mulaney. I was over on the bench, or the horse was in the elevator. I didn't know the horse could. I've seen those are the two that I remember. But I've never actually sat down, and I don't think I've ever actually sat down and like watched a John Mulaney special up until this because I was listening to the Theo Von podcast. God, Theo Von is so funny. Theo Von, like, I have no idea what that dude's opinions are, but he's so funny. He just dude can say literally whatever he wants. But I was listening to the John Mulaney episode of the Theo Von podcast, last weekend or what happened last week or whatever it's called. But I was listening to the John Mulaney episode and just seemed like a really interesting, honest guy who, I mean, he's been very publicly in some trouble lately. Um, he had a drug problem, and then over the course of the drug problem, he um, cheated on his wife, and then they got a divorce. And this special specifically is about one of those topics. He doesn't mention the divorce at all. So, which, like, I don't know enough about it to know whether he was, to know what actually happened during the divorce. I thought this was I thought this special was great. I thought this special was awesome. I don't watch a lot of like stand-up comedy. I don't watch much. The only other one that I watch is like Gabriel Iglesias. But Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias is a different type of comedian. He's a very conversational storytelling comedian. Like I you definitely get the sense that Fluffy just kind of gets on stage and starts talking. Um, this felt very meticulously written and planned in a good way. Like, and maybe it wasn't, but Mulaney felt so in control of his comedic timing and his body language and his voice. It was stellar. There's a setup early on in the special where he like points out a kid in the crowd, and then throughout the special, he doesn't he mentions the kid for like the a bit, and then throughout the special, he'll just like look up at that spot as he's saying something about, snorting cocaine off of a baby changing station in a bathroom. And it cracked me up every time. The the stories in this special are so funny, but they're so funny, and I mentioned this because I also did a YouTube short reaction to this. It's hilarious. The special is so funny, such a perfectly like put together comedy. So like such a great. Obviously, comedy's subjective, so it won't work for everyone, but such a great like blend of stories, situational humor, just everything. The idea of a bunch of comedians at an intervention not telling jokes, just the whole thing was very funny. But you don't get any of this special. This is also a very like brave. I don't know. Brave is a weird word. But it's a very it's a I don't know. I use the word vulnerability a lot. It's one of the most important words in the English language to me. It's a very courageous and vulnerable piece of art. And that I think is what really elevated it for me. Because yes, Mulaney's hilarious. His jokes are great, but also he's a dude who's messed some shit up. He's a dude who is messed up. Um, so he's very open and honest in the special about the abuse, the drug addiction, and the pain that he caused to other people. He's very open and honest about that while still being hilarious. That was the thing that like really clicked with me about this special. Um, it's taking a bad time in your life and not just turning it into a joke, but turning it into a message, turning it into a I don't know, turning it into something that can help other people. Um, and laughter is the best medicine. Like that's that. I've quoted a lot of cat posters on this damn podcast, but laughter is the best medicine. And laughing through laughing through shame, laughing through this very real like most people would not have the balls to talk about this. Um, Laughing through that is a really powerful thing. It's a really powerful, really fascinating thing. Also, I think because Fluffy's last special was very much about cancel culture, and it was annoying as hell. Um, I'm gonna just quote Bo Burnham on cancel culture. Cancel culture is an overreaction to a real problem. Saying whatever you want with no thought given to the people you're talking about is not a good thing. But destroying people's livelihoods for mistakes they made years ago or even yesterday is also not a good thing. Um, I thought this specific special was such a fascinating because he kind of spends the entire show canceling himself. Like he spends the entire show being very open and honest about, yeah, I messed up. I did all of these things. I did all of these things. Um, he doesn't mention the divorce, which I think is the one kind of knock. But I didn't know about it while I was watching the special. I figured that out when I was reading Letterboxd reviews. He doesn't mention the divorce, but like I don't. I think he doesn't mention the divorce because all he had was an hour and 20 minutes. Like, he had an hour and 20 minutes, and the criminal thing, like cheating on your wife and divorcing your wife is not good, but it's not inherently criminal. The criminal thing, owning the mistakes, the bigger mistakes, that's what he does with this special. He owns his biggest mistakes. Um, and I think that's a really powerful thing. I think owning your mess ups on the biggest stage in the world, Netflix, owning those mess ups is really cool and really important. And I thought this special was such a perfect balance of hilarious but also thought provoking. It felt like we were having an interesting, important conversation that needed to be had. Um, cause he like the fact that he was in rehab was all over the news. Of course he needs to own that. Of course he needs to. So I thought this was the perfect. I saying comeback is weird because I haven't seen any of his other specials, but I thought this was for the state of Mulaney's career right now. I thought this was the perfect material to come back with. The perfect material to come back with to to put yourself back out there. Um so funny, but also like I didn't like I'm not I don't want to hesitate. I cried from laughing. Like it was that funny, but I didn't like cry. It's not depressing. But it's just real enough that like it it excited my neurons. It made me think about, what this piece of art meant for him to make and what, as you talk about responsibility of fame, um taking responsibility for the fact that you're the biggest. He literally closes the special by reading an interview he gave to GQ while he was completely gone, completely zooted in on cocaine. Like this was like 2 days before he went to rehab. Um, so just owning your biggest mistakes on the biggest stage in the world. Um, I thought it was really cool and really fascinating. Yeah, that's my take on that. Let's jump into what will probably be the longest section of today's show. Let's jump into Star Wars Visions. Okay, so this episode's a little bit structured out of order because, like, I mean, it's not really structured out of order because, I mean, there was Ted Lasso, which I always talk about first, and then I did watch the John Mulaney sketch, the John Mulaney stand-up special next, but then, like, I didn't watch all of Visions in one day, and I actually watched the one movie that I watched. I watched that in between, but I'm gonna talk about all 9 Visions. I actually finished the last one like this morning. I'm gonna talk about all 9 of these just in a row. But let's start off with like an overview of the entire season. I um First let's talk about season 1. I freaking adore season 1. I there like that like there was a lot of people who were like, yeah, it's good. It's a little bit hit and miss. Like some of the sketches, some of the shorts are better than others. And then I watched it and I was like, yeah, some of the shorts are better than others, but they're all really good. They're all great. There's not a bad one in the bunch. The more I've thought about it, the more I think there's a couple that are like not great. But overall, I think season 1 is absolutely stellar. I like the one that most people don't like. I like Tatooine Rhapsody. I like the one about the band. I like that one. Sue me. But yeah, so I think season 2, the lows are not as low. I think season 2 is a little bit better than season 1. Um, and I think the highs are higher than season 1. So yeah, I think season 2 is actually better than season 1. I think there is a couple of these that are so thematically rich. So like they pack so much into these little like 15-minute shorts. It's kind of insane and brilliant, and I really really loved most of them. There's a couple like the bottom two I think are still great, but not as good. Um, but overall, I really really loved most of this. Yeah, I guess that's my take on the season as a whole. Let's start going episode by episode. So the first episode is titled Sith, and it's about a girl named Lola who is a Sith, naturally. And she has left that and is now living on a deserted planet with her droid bestie, and she's a painter. She's painting. I thought this episode was really interesting. First of all, gotta talk about the art style. I thought the art style of this was beautiful. I thought it was amazing. I thought once it got into some action, also, the action was really good. I think the themes and like Lola's story is really really interesting and really cool. Um, I thought this was a really 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 fun episode. I think it doesn't really understand what Sith are. I like this happened a little bit in season one, especially with like the best episode of season one was called The Ninth Jedi, but it completely changed. That episode completely changed the canon of how lightsabers work. Um, this season doesn't have anything that egregious, but it does. There is some points where it's like it'll use a word or a piece of like Star Wars word, a piece of Star Wars vocabulary without actually like it doesn't feel like it actually knows what that word means. I don't think Sith like that this is completely unrelated, but there was like a 3 minute short done by Studio Ghibli, directed by Miyazaki, a couple of months ago, and it was Grogu crossing. It was Grogu. It was Baby Yoda crossing over with um the the dust mites that appear in some of the Ghibli films. They appear in Spirited Away. They pop up in Totoro. Yeah. Um, you could tell Hayao Miyazaki had no idea what a Grogu was. He did not know what that was. He just saw a picture of Baby Yoda and and just started drawing Baby Yoda and then put the dust mites in there. And the short's fun. Like the short's really cute. The short's great. There's a little bit of that in Visions also. And it like that for the Sith being this very philosophical like thing. Um, I thought it didn't really reckon like because the short is a lot about what light and dark is, like the balance between light and dark and how dark needs to be kind of darkness is just as much a part of life as light is. Um, and I thought that thematically was really interesting. But I don't think it reckons really with like the philosophical ideas of what a Sith is. It just because like she's an artist, so it literally like visualizes it through paint. The art style in this is amazing, and the visualization is incredible. But it doesn't. It just reckons with it as it's very black and white. It doesn't reckon with like the actual philosophies of the dark side or the actual philosophies of the light side. It just light and dark, taking like the zeitgeisty knowledge of what those things are. Light is good, dark is bad, light is joy, dark is sadness. Taking those things and then it just tells a story around them. But it doesn't really delve into like some of the conversations that other Star Wars media has had about that. Um, but overall, I think Sith is a really really good, fun short, and I love the themes and the story is really good. The second short, Screecher's Reach, top three media of the year so far. Screecher's Reach is freaking awesome. Screecher's Reach is incredible. I love it so much. Okay, my favorite piece of media of all time is an animated limited series called Over the Garden Wall. Um, and I love Over the Garden Wall because it feels like a dark fairy tale. It feels like it's. I think that show is like Y7. Like it's made for little. Like it's. There's nothing in it that like little kids wouldn't be able to watch. Yet it still somehow finds a way to be scary. I love Over the Garden Wall so much. Um, Screecher's Reach reminded me a lot of Over the Garden Wall. Um, because it starts off as a ghost story. Like it starts off as these three kids are like living in a factory. They're being raised in a factory and forced to work in the factory. Um, and one of them wants to escape. and she has this pendant that she keeps talking to. This is full spoilers. This is full spoilers. Go watch Screecher's Reach. I don't want to spoil this movie. I don't want to spoil this short for you. It's so incredible. But she has this pendant that she like talks. She has a mantra. I don't remember what the mantra is, but she has this thing that she has this pendant, and she like talks to it. She's like, "I follow your path with strength and courage," or something. Um, and so she wants to go to this cave that's supposedly haunted called Screecher's Reach. And you don't really get a picture of why she wants to go there at first. But there's rumors that there's a ghost that lives in this place. And so these three kids go to Screecher's Reach, and in the midst of this, there's a scene where they're camping and just talking about where they live, and one of the kids says there are worse lives, and the lead girl goes, "Yeah, but there are better ones too," which is such an interesting, like, thought-provoking line. Um, it's amazing the like thematic kind of weight that they packed into this short. I love it so much. Um, but yeah, she's like, there are better ones. So then they get to Screecher's Reach, and there's you meet the ghost. It's and just screaming. The way it's designed is actually like it's the thing that reminded me of Over the Garden Wall. It's scary. It's not unkid friendly, but it's scary. You meet that, and so then the other two kids run away, and she keeps going. She's like, I have to face this thing. And you don't really ever get told why she has to face this thing. Um, but she's like, I have to face the thing. So she meets this ghost, and at this point in the short, I was like, this is really good, but I don't think it's Star Warsy enough. Like it's really good, but there's not enough in it that's like definitively Star Wars. And then the screaming ghost ignites a red lightsaber. I was like, oh my god, yes, oh my god, this is, oh my god, like I was literally, like, it's literally 2 seconds after I had that thought. A screaming ghost ignites a red lightsaber, and it's like, oh wait, no, this is awesome, this is amazing. Um, and like, even as I'm thinking about it, I'm theorizing more about what the ghost was. But yeah, anyway, it ignites a red lightsaber, and then, so she's like, I have to fix this. And then the girl uses the force to like drag a boulder down from the top of the cave, to like drag a boulder down. I believe she even says I have to let the light in. So she drags this boulder down, and then like sunlight shines through, so you get to see that the ghost is just this old. I think it's an old woman, but it might be an old man. I don't know. I think it's an old woman. It's just this old decrepit Sith woman. And she gets crushed by the rock, and then she's like trying to crawl to get back to her lightsaber, and the girl picks up the red lightsaber and kills the lady, kills, like, literally straight up. I don't remember. I think she cuts her head off. I think she cuts her head off. Maybe this isn't kid friendly. This and one other are so like thematically rich and kind of intense that I don't know if they're even for kids. But so she cuts the lady's head off, and um, she keeps the lightsaber. She keeps the lightsaber, and then she she gets back out. She gets back with her friends, and then she takes the amulet and goes, thank you for giving me strength and courage." And then the amulet talks back. The amulet is like, "You did well. Now it's time for us to meet." And I was like, "Oh my god, what, dude, the twists in this thing." Like, Star Wars is known for, like, Star Wars has the greatest. The Empire Strikes Back has the greatest twist in cinematic history. Star Wars is known for those plot turns. And then when the amulet talks back, and this gorgeous ship drops out of the sky, this gorgeously designed ship drops out of the sky, but the ship is red. Um, the ship drops out of the sky, and this really like like this big, like, foreboding looking lady steps out. Another Sith. She steps out, and she offers to take this character with her. The lead character. And there's this really sweet little moment that's just great use of dramatic irony, where we as the audience know this is a Sith, this is bad, this is not good, but the characters don't know that. They just like the lead just sees this as a way out. And so she looks back, like she asks if she can take her friends with her, and the Sith lady says no. So she looks back at her friends, and um they're obviously very scared. Like they're obviously like, I was thinking about it because I think it was in Star Wars Rebels when Ezra meets Vader for the first time, he describes the cold, like the sense of cold that entered the room. Because this lead character has already basically turned to the dark side. I wonder if she didn't feel the cold, but the other three characters that are there who are like haven't turned to the dark side did feel it, and that's why they're worried about it, but they don't fully understand it. So when she looks back at them, one of them literally just nods and goes, "Go." He tells her to go, which is so fascinating. Like, he doesn't try and stop her, which is so, dude, this short, and she leaves, and she goes with the Sith, and this short is exactly what Star Wars can be. It is a new story with new characters, yet using what we already know from canon. Like, these shorts are not canon, but using what we already know, it tells a new story. It tells it with new characters, and in like 14 minutes made me care about this new story and these new characters. And by the time you get to the ending, when this little girl, this innocent little girl, goes with the Sith, goes with the bad guy, you actually get like mixed feelings about it. You actually feel something. That is what Star Wars can be. That's what I want from Star Wars. But no, we're gonna follow the same 10 characters for the rest of time. We're gonna follow Anakin Skywalker and Rey Skywalker, and we're gonna follow Han Solo, and we're gonna follow Ahsoka Tano for the rest of time. We're not gonna do anything new. This short made me mad about the state of Star Wars, obviously, but it also made me more excited for the James Mangold project, the idea of an actual new Star Wars story. Now that I've actually seen what Star Wars can be when you tell stories with new people, with new characters, this made me more excited for the James Mangold project. That's like, so yeah, I'm really excited for the James Mangold project now. The one about the first Jedi and the discovery of the Force. Yeah, this episode in particular made me wish these were either canon or we were getting feature length films from them. Like I would love, because it's 2D animated. It's a 2D animated horror movie. Like, dude, this was made for me, literally made for me. Um, I would watch this as a feature film. I would love it. I would watch. Dude, I would kill for Disney to just make 2D animated films again. Just please. Oh my God. Um, but yeah, then what was the third short? I'm trying to think. Oh, the third short is In the Stars. Okay. So then you get the third short, which is called In the Stars, and it's about these two sisters living on a planet in the Age of the Empire, in the Imperial era. And this planet has been ravaged by the Empire. Their resources have been stolen. Their and these two girls are the last survivors. Um, Yeah, and you get the story of their mother was a Force user. Their mother was a Jedi who led a resistance against the Empire and then was killed. Um, and I thought this was really good. This episode is the first example of a at least I think it's a new thing. I would have to go back and rewatch, but I don't remember season one being this overtly political. This episode is about like imperialism and colonialism, and the two girls are very like indigenous coded, like they're very much modeled after indigenous people. Really, really cool stuff. And then you get a really, really good like because the crux, the plot is one of these girls needs water. They're running out of water, so they have to sneak into an imperial base to steal some water. Um, and I thought it was really good. It's but like this is there's that overtly political element, but then the story itself is very classical Star Wars. Like you have an imperial officer who's evil, um, very classically Star Wars. I thought this was really good. I will say, the um the youngest sister, the because it's two sisters, the younger one, some of the decisions she made were dumb. Like character child characters, younger characters oftentimes will make decisions like that I'm just like, why did you make that decision? Why? Like I get that you're a child, but like why? Like what do you want to I didn't think it did enough to justify why she was making the really, really poor decisions that she was making. Um, but yeah, other than that, I really, really liked In the Stars. I thought it was really good. I liked the two sisters very much outside of what I just mentioned. And I love like this is claymation. This is it's I love that it was claymation. The animation was gorgeous. Um, it's very good. I really liked it. Not like it's probably in the bottom half of my ranking of this season, but I thought it was really good. Um, you get the fourth short, which is done by Aardman Animation, who did Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run. Um, and so this is also claymation, but it's a completely different type of claymation. In the Stars reminded me of like Kubo and the Two Strings or like Paranorman. This is Aardman. It's like Wallace and Gromit. I thought this one was pretty good. I thought the mother daughter story was good. I thought it created a nice little emotional center. I thought it's about a race. It's about these young this little girl uh who's in a piloting school, and that this school has a family race where you get to like bring your entire family and bring a ship and race. And I thought it was really fun. The only my only knock with this one, my knock with this one is I wish it was longer. In the first like 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes, it's 13 minutes. In the first like 2 or 3 minutes, it introduces a bunch of characters that are like friends with this girl at her school, and then none of those characters really get anything to do. Um, I thought it does a very kind of it does a story that's already very cliche, and then it just like jumps through that story. It doesn't flesh out any of the plot points or any of the ideas or any of the characters. It just takes a very, very tried and true good template for a mother-daughter story and just jumps through it. Just plot point to plot point, just jumps through it. Um, this is also the least canon. Like there's a lot of the others you can like they're not canon, but you can kind of fit them into canon. This one is like it's an Aardman short first. It's not a Star Wars. It's just art. It's Aardman and Star Wars. It's not another studio telling a Star Wars story. It's Aardman telling an Aardman story with a Star Wars skin on it. But that doesn't mean it was bad. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah, that's I Am Your Mother. I forgot to say that was what that was called. I Am Your Mother. Then you have the fifth short, which is Journey to the Dark Head, which I thought was pretty good. I thought it was decent. I think it's the most conventional of the episode of the season. I think it's because it's very much just a Jedi and a pilot go on a mission, and they both bring like a specific amount of baggage to the mission, and then they both deal with the baggage throughout the mission, and they go through an arc, they go through a change. Compared to like Sith, which had a very metaphorical art style, which played into the themes, or Screecher's Reach, which had an unhappy ending and ambiguous ending, or In the Stars, which had a political message. Journey to the Dark Head is very like traditional Star Wars. It's like very traditional, like this is what you expect from a Star Wars story. I still think it's good. I still think it works. I think it's fine. I think this is one of the ones that you could probably fit into canon if you really wanted to. I think it takes place in the Old Republic before the Rule of Two, back when there was a war between the Jedi and the Sith. Yeah, I think I don't know. I thought it was really good. I like the villain a lot. I really really like the villain of this one. Because he has a connection to the Jedi. He has a connection to the Jedi's paths because he killed the Jedi's master. So he has a connection to the Jedi, and then they're journeying to this planet that the pilot grew up on, that has like a connection to the Force. It reminded me a lot of Mortis from the Clone Wars. There's these two very large statues, and one represents the light and one represents the dark. And the pilot believes that she can cut off the head of the dark head, the head of the dark statue, and end the war. But then, like, she gets there, and it has thematically, it's very similar to Sith, that the idea of light and dark working together. But I think Sith just did it in a more interesting way. This one's anime, so it's like the action is great, the art style is really good. Yeah, I don't know. I thought Sith was really interesting. I thought Sith was pretty fun, or not Sith. Journey to the Dark Head. I thought this was really good. But very conventional, very just a classical Star Wars story. Yeah, that's like yeah. I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say about it. There's not a whole lot to say about a lot of these, but then there is stuff to say about some of them. So yeah, I'm gonna go let the cat out. So then you have what might be my second favorite short of the collection, not the sixth short, entitled "The Spy Dancer." I believe this was done by a French studio, and it feels very French. It's a spy. It's an espionage spy thriller in Star Wars. Not in the same way that like Rogue One was an espionage spy thriller. This is like James Bond clubs, and not clubs, but like high society spy stuff. I really really like this one. I loved the animation. Is gorgeous. It's very French, very beautiful animation though. It's not about a Jedi for once. It's about a dancer. It's about a dancer who's a spy for the rebellion. Hence the title, Spy Dancer. And she has this very like fluid ballet style to like you literally see her dance in multiple because she's literally dancing to put trackers on stormtroopers. Very cool. So I think they can steal weapons or something. But then when you actually see her fight, she actually has like that same style continues, which is really cool. Oddly enough, I think the strength of this movie, this short, is the characters. I loved. It has the opposite problem that I Am Your Mother had, where it sets up all these characters and actually gives them time to shine. Which is weird because I don't think it's that much longer than I Am Your Mother. It just handles it all so much better. Yeah, I thought this was excellent. I thought this was awesome. Interestingly enough, let me jump back. I love the lead character, the spy dancer, because so often Star Wars, even among like Vision shorts, Star Wars is about kids. It's about young adults who are innocent stepping into a larger galaxy, which is awesome. Like that's great. The spy dancer here is older. Like she's 40s or 50s. She's a mom who lost her child 20 years ago. Um, and I loved that aspect of it. I love the fact that like this is someone who's seen life, seen the terror, because this is in the Imperial era, seen the terrors of the Empire. Um, I guess canonically it would have to take place. It's not canon, but it would have to take place like right around Return of the Jedi, because that's 20 years. That's like right around Return of the Jedi would be 20 years. So this is like end of the Empire, maybe. I don't know. It's not canon. It's what it is. But I love that plot. Because the son maybe isn't so dead. But yeah, dude. The other interesting thing about the spy dancer is she's based on a real person, like a real, actual exotic dancer who was a spy in World War One for I want to say like Denmark or something, who was then executed by Germany. Which that's just from reading one Wikipedia page. I haven't done any research on her, but the fact that like this season did this a lot, where it took real world politics or real world stories and injected them into Star Wars, which is what Star Wars has always been. The original trilogy is um, a metaphor for the Vietnam War. That's not my words. That's George Lucas. Um, so Star Wars has always been that kind of injecting of the real world, examining the real world through the lens of epic fantasy and classical storytelling. And this continues that, and I really, really, really loved it. Yeah, I as you can probably tell, I have switched up because I did the first four shorts in like one take, and then started cutting because I got hungry and I got thirsty and I got tired of talking. ASMR. But yeah, anyway, that's what's happening. Sorry, it might be a mess. Anyway, I really, really love the Spy Dancer. I loved it because, like, outside of Screecher's Reach, this is also the most intense. This felt like the stakes were real. The Empire was like, burning villages and blowing up entire buildings. And each character gets a moment to shine, and there's like aspects of both found family and real family and fighting for both. And I loved this. I loved the Spy Dancer. Spy Dancer's awesome. And it's based on a real person, which I didn't know because I did a YouTube short review and went to pull a poster to use the green screen, and there was a Wikipedia page for a real person who was a spy in World War One. So cool, dude. Like this is so cool. But yeah, that's my take on the Spy Dancer. Short number 7, The Bandits of Golak, is done by an Indian studio. Um, this I don't know if it's my least favorite, but I didn't love The Bandits of Golak. I think in terms of like a season that has been so full of innovation in art style, theme, storytelling, uh, obviously that injection of real world kind of thoughts and ideas. I thought this was a little bit too traditional. The art style is basically exactly what Bad Batch looks like. Um, and then the story itself is very just classical Star Wars. Two kids on the run who were both force sensitive, running from an inquisitor. That's basically what this episode was. I still think it was good. Don't get me wrong. I still think it was really good. Like it opens on a train. I thought it had a very, very fun Western vibe to it. Which is weird because it's from India, which, dude, Indian cinema is in a really, really fun place right now. one of the films that was in my top 5 of last year was a movie called RRR. That is a 3-hour Indian action movie. That's one of the most fun movies I've ever seen. If you haven't seen RRR, you should go watch RRR. RRR is amazing. It's a musical. It's a comedy. But yeah, like this short has some of the action fun that was in that. And then obviously it's very just classical Star Wars with bandits, with raiders, with the Empire, with rebels, with secret Jedi, and it felt tonally felt kind of similar to Obi-Wan, honestly. Which, yeah, like I have a lot of issues with Obi-Wan, but I don't mean that in a bad way. This felt like Obi-Wan. Um, but yeah, I thought this was really interesting. I've heard that the Inquisitor is actually modeled off of demons in Indian mythology, which is really interesting and really cool. Um, but yeah, I felt like Bandits of Golak was just a little bit too traditional and samey. Uh, Still really good. Still really, like, don't get me wrong, it's still a lot of fun, but maybe it was because I was coming off of the Spy Dancer, and Spy Dancer. I thought Spy Dancer. I still think I prefer Screecher's Reach, but Spy Dancer does so much right, and then you go here, so much new and innovative stuff right, and then you get to Bandits of Golak, and it's very traditional Star Wars, which is still good. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a lot of fun, but still it's kind of very samey. Yeah. Then you have the eighth short in Vision Season 2 titled The Pit. I had not heard like anybody talking about this. Like I had heard some people talking about Screecher's Reach, but I hadn't heard anybody talking about The Pit, and this might be my third favorite. Like I thought The Pit was awesome because I think it epitomizes what I was talking about with like injecting real world elements into Star Wars. I thought this was an awesome metaphor for like uh, generational systematic discrimination. I thought it was amazing because you have this group of prisoners, who are prisoners of the Empire, being forced to to mine for kyber crystals. And at first it like bugged me because I don't think that's how kyber crystals work. Like kyber crystals existed in one place at like by the time of the Empire. They existed in one place in the entire galaxy, but that like it didn't matter by the time I got to the end of the short. Um, we have this group of prisoners who are digging for kyber crystals, and they dig this massive pit. And then the Empire is like um, they've dug this massive pit. They've they've sucked the Earth dry. They've sucked the planet dry of Kyber. There's nothing left. So the Empire frees them. They release the bonds. They release the handcuffs. But they leave them in the pit. They leave them in the pit, which is such a great metaphor for systemic discrimination. This idea that like, yeah, slavery's gone. Slavery is gone, but we've left these people in the pit. I thought it was such a cool metaphor. Um, and then one of them gets out and goes into the city and like asks people to like goes into the city that they helped build through the mining, which is once again not how kyber crystals work, but goes into the city that they helped build and is asking these people for help, and they all just ignore him. Um, Such a great metaphor, so cool. And they all just ignore him, so he gets captured and dragged back. And I don't think he dies, but he might actually die when because he gets dropped into the pit. He might actually die. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. He might actually die when they drop him. But then another little girl picks up one of the kyber crystals, and he quoted earlier in this short. we have to make them we have to show them the light or see the light or something. So they start chanting see the light. And then the people from the city all like come out and come to save them. And then like the Empire is there and it's this very like classical riot scene, civil unrest scene, which is very real world. Andor had had like the finale of Andor is great civil unrest. Like it's very felt very true to life, and this episode does that again. Yeah, I thought this it's shorter, it's simpler, but I thought it was a great like made me think about the world that I live in, which is all you can ask from art. Think about ourselves, think about the world we live in. I thought it was great. Yeah, might be my third favorite. Might be the third best one. Then there is the finale of Star Wars Vision Season 2, Owl's Song. I can't decide if I loved this or didn't like it. I liked it, but I can't decide if I thought it was great or if I just thought it was good. Um, Cause basically you have this little girl who loves to sing, but she lives on a planet that has a large deposit of corrupted kyber, which once again I'm not sure that's how kyber crystals work. The last two, but but she loves to sing. But when she sings, it affects the kyber because she has a connection to the force. Um, the which is a very like it's especially with after watching 9 Vision shorts, it's very like it's not new. That's a very typical story. Little girl has a connection to the Force. Dad won't let her use it. Um, but then eventually she finds a way to use that connection. I first of all, the animation in Owl's Song might be the best looking short, especially when she's singing and it visualizes the connection between her and the Kyber and her connection with the Force. It might be the best uh, visualization of the Force we've ever gotten. That idea of the thing that surrounds us and binds us and holds the galaxy together. Um, it's either this or the scene in the Last Jedi when Luke explains balance. But for some reason, and I couldn't really even tell you why, the idea of singing being a connection to the Force doesn't really make sense to me. Like Sith uses paint. Sith uses like visual art. But for some reason that made sense to me because it's an expression of I don't know, maybe it's because it's using the hands. She uses her hands to paint the same way you use your hand to do a Jedi mind trick or you use your hand to force choke someone. I don't think that's why, but for some reason, just the idea of using your voice, using singing as a connection to the Force, for some reason that bugs me, and I couldn't really even tell you why. It just, um, I don't know. It didn't really click for me. But like, I love the mining story. I love the there's a Jedi in it that's really cool. I don't know. I think it's a very simple, traditional, classical Star Wars story, especially for Visions, um, and that held it back a little bit for me. But it also might have my favorite looking animation. I don't know. Screecher's Reach looks freaking gorgeous. Screecher's Reach looks amazing. Um, it definitely has my favorite animation moment, the visualization of the concept of the Force. Um, yeah, I don't know. I thought Al's song was really good. Was good. Not like there's the three that I think are great. The Pit, Spy Dancer, and Screecher's Reach. Those three, like Screecher's Reach is incredible. Spy Dancer's awesome. The Pit's great, and then the rest of them just kind of fall in there, um, somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was good, not great. Yeah. Anyway, that's my take on Vision season two. Overall, I think it's a step up from the first season. I think the amount of thematic richness that's in a lot of these shorts is makes the entire thing worthwhile. Um, a lot of like gorgeous animation, and then that like concepts of light and dark and the real world analogies and just a lot of it I loved. A lot of this I really really loved. Yeah, I don't know. That's my take on Vision season 2. I have no idea how long this episode is, especially now that I've started just shooting single shorts instead of trying to do it all in one take. I have no idea how long this episode is. Um, but yeah, that's my take on Vision season 2. Let's jump into the one last thing we have today, which is my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Okay, now we get to talk about the one movie that I watched in this hour and a half long show about all the movies that I watched. If you're still watching, thank you so much. Like, thank you so much. I'm so glad y'all are still here. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Remember back, I want to take you back to last week. I said for some reason giving Guardians 2 5 stars didn't make sense. Like for some reason it just didn't feel right. Um it's not that I have overt issues with Guardians 2, it's my favorite Marvel movie. It just didn't really make sense to give Guardians 2 5 stars for some reason to me. I gave Guardians 3 5 stars. This movie, and I think I may have figured out what it is. I think it might just be the MCU of it all. The very safe, typical, well trod, well successful, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's the MCU formula. It's good. It's good. Like the MCU formula works. It's good. Um, but it's very safe. You've seen it all before. Even with Guardians 2, which I think does get a little bit weird. It doesn't truly blow your socks off. It comes the closest. It comes the closest in the MCU. But there's nothing about Guardians 2 that truly blows your mind. I think that movie's incredible. I think the writing's incredible. I think the characters are incredible. But there's nothing about it that pushes it over the edge. With Guardians 3, there are things about Guardians 3 that push it over the edge. In terms of non-spoiler thoughts, first of all, I think this movie's incredible. I think this movie's brilliant. I think all of the characters are so well written. I think it's a great end of the trilogy. I think it brings together aspects of the first two that didn't quite feel connected, and I think this movie bridges a lot of those gaps and makes both of the first two better, which is exactly what you want a trilogy topper to do. I think the humor in this movie really works. But you almost can't talk about the humor without talking about the fact that this is the darkest movie in the entire MCU. I think that's the thing that puts it over. Is this is the darkest, most gut-wrenching and most uncomfortable in certain ways movie in the MCU. If you're at all sensitive to violence against animals, violence against children, if you're at all sensitive to those two things, this movie will not be for you. Like this movie challenges the PG-13 rating in certain ways. To some extent, I think This movie is exactly why the PG-13 rating exists. We have just for some reason decided that PG-13 is okay for 5-year-olds, when in reality it's PG-13. And a lot of movies like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret was PG-13. I couldn't tell you why that. I mean, I could tell you why that movie was PG-13 because it talks about periods, but that's not a valid reason for that movie to be PG-13. Um, this is one of the most valid, if not like, how did this get a PG-13 rating? This is this is very much like the most adult, mature movie in the MCU. There are there are moments in this movie that are like branded into my brain with how heartbreaking they are. There's two scenes in particular that are just stuck. Like I can't stop thinking about them. This movie, I personally liked every single character in this movie. I thought everybody worked. The High Evolutionary as the villain is awesome. Rocket is great. Nebula, who this movie made me want to rewatch the Guardians movies from Nebula's perspective, because she gets such. By the end of this movie, she doesn't get like a bunch more screen time. Although she is the a member of the Guardians at this point, and Gamora is not. Um, but like she doesn't get a bunch more screen time than she did in the first two. But this movie does certain things that tie her arc together in ways that I was not expecting. Um, I think I thought yeah, I Drax is amazing. Mantis is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. Um, I think this movie does not feel like an MCU movie. I think this movie feels like a Guardians movie. The first Guardians feels like an MCU movie with a certain flavor to it. The Guardians 2 feels like a MCU movie first and a Guardians movie second. Guardians 3 feels like a Guardians movie first. The point of this movie is bringing to bear the arcs of these characters, bringing it home. Uh, they're the first movie has to set up the Infinity Saga and set up Thanos. The second movie is just really good. Like I feel like I'm crapping on the second movie too much. The second movie is still incredible. This movie is a step up in every way. I loved it. I loved. Take this with a grain of salt because I've seen him compared to Taskmaster and Black Widow, and I also really liked Taskmaster and Black Widow. Um, I don't want to say really liked, but I got what they were doing with Taskmaster and Black Widow. I really liked Adam Warlock in this movie. I thought what they did with him was cool. I thought what they did with the Sovereign and the way they tied the Sovereign into the larger kind of universe, I thought that was really cool. I thought this movie was great. I mean it's better than Guardians 2, and Guardians 2 was my favorite MCU movie. So what does that say? Um, the, I'm what I'm about to say, don't misinterpret me. This is not top 2 or 3 most emotional movies I've ever seen. This is top 2 or 3 most emotional experiences in a theater I've ever had. Because I didn't watch Everything Everywhere All at Once in a theater. There was a movie called Mass from 2021 that I think is the most I've ever cried watching a movie. Um, I think I cried about that much in this movie, but I didn't see Mass in a theater. Uh, I early and often I cried early and often in this movie. The needle drops are incredible. Rocket's story is incredible. Um, it's a perfect Guardians movie. It's a perfect send off to this version of the Guardians. Chris Pratt is great. I like the. I don't even know what else to say. Like, there's aspects in this movie that, like I mentioned it earlier. There's parts of this movie that genuinely made me uncomfortable, which is awesome. I never would have expected going into an MCU movie that there would be things that made me uncomfortable. Like that's awesome. This movie felt like something new. I put out a tweet yesterday that and the tweet was basically, this movie feels like what you would have expected Multiverse of Madness to be when Sam Raimi got announced. This feels like a Sam Raimi movie in certain ways. It feels like there's straight up horror elements in this movie. There's one scene that was like, oh, James Gunn's made some horror. There's one scene that is straight up like a slasher. Reminded me of the octopus scene in Spider-Man 2, when the arms wake up and the doctors are trying to cut them off, and you get that great slasher scene. Reminded me of that. This is the goriest movie in the MCU. There's so much like blood, and I cannot believe they were allowed to make this movie the way that they made it. It's so surprising and shocking. I gave it 5 stars. But I do have a couple of issues with it, but they almost don't matter, because that X factor, that like the emotional weight of it, the heart of it, almost cancels out any of the nitpicks that I had. There's a couple of scenes where characters are just explaining how they feel in very explicit clinical detail, and I'm just like, that is not how people talk. That is not how real people talk. There's that, and then I think a couple of the action scenes are a little bit over-edited a little bit. And then the only other nitpick I have is there's a lot of slow-mo in this movie. There's a lot of like team-up shots, which is fine. Like, I love team-up shots. But there's a lot of team-up shots, and there's a lot of slow motion in this movie. But other than that, like, it's a perfect Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's a perfect send-off to these characters. It's a great comic book movie. I think it's probably my favorite comic book movie since Infinity War. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's incredible. Guardians 3 is an absolute triumph. There is one with all of that said, with the review done, I have one question for the MCU. What's next? Do they have anything great? Is there any movie in the MCU that will be great? Was this the last great MCU movie? And I kind of think it was. I think Secret Invasion is going to be awesome. I think Secret Invasion is going to be cool. But I think Marvel has been at least for the Infinity Saga, or not the Infinity Saga, the Multiverse Saga, I think Marvel has been punched in the mouth one too many times. I don't think they're going to be able to course correct in time. Look at I don't know how much faith I have in the Marvels at all. I don't know if I like the way that movie looks, honestly. But like, look at Blade. Blade, I should be so excited for Blade. The cast looks Mahershala Ali, Delroy Lindo, Mia Goth. It's a great cast. But they've gone through 2 directors and like 4 or 5 writers, and now there's a writer strike, and they're trying to go into production like by like January, maybe. I don't know when they're trying to go into production, but I promise you that won't happen. Because the strike will not be over. This strike is going to be through Labor Day at least. It will not be over in time to go into production by January. So if they go into production in January, they're going in with a script that they know is not where it needs to be. So I have very little faith. Fantastic Four could be good. Matt Shakman, I think 2/3 of WandaVision is great. 2/3 of WandaVision is great. But once again, Fantastic Four has gone through 4 writers, and 2 directors, and They will not have a finished script by January, which is when I know that's when they want to go into production. Um, I don't think we're going to see a great Marvel movie until post Secret Wars. Whatever they do after that, when they can take another year or two off, because I don't think Bob Iger would let them take the time off that they need to figure this out. I don't think they would be allowed to do that, but they need to. So I don't think until after Secret Wars we're going to see another great Marvel movie. Unfortunately, I don't know. I thought talking about that was a great way to wrap in the writer strike and the kind of state of the industry stuff. But yeah, that like I don't know. Guardians 3 is an absolute triumph. It's incredible. It's brilliant. It's amazing. I loved it. Go watch it. Um, Unless you're sensitive to animal cruelty. But yeah, let's jump into the outro and yeah, let's wrap this up. It's very long. And there you have it. That is an incredibly long episode of the Cinephile Diaries. I went on a journey trying to record this thing, y'all. I don't know if I've ever done so many second takes, bro. Anyway, with that, I want to thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, you're an absolute legend, and I love you. Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, do all of the lovely things. Let me know what movies I should watch this week. Yeah, that's what I got to say about the week. What is this week? I don't know. I don't think there's anything. I want to watch. There's an indie movie that's very dialogue driven about AI called Artifice Girl that I saw a review for that I want to watch. Other than that, I don't. I want to start a new show. I want to start. There's a show called Silo on Apple TV Plus that I want to start. But yeah, that's what's going on. I'm gonna probably try and watch a bunch this week, and then we'll talk about it next week. That's what I got to say. We will see y'all in the next one. Bye bye.